Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the Wright Flyer. This is your captain, Randy Wright speaking, and as always, I'm joined on our state-of-the-art radio program by my first officer, Jeremy Grapenton. Folks, this will be the final boarding call, so if you please, claim your seats, fasten your seatbelts, kick back, relax, and enjoy the show, while Jeremy and I go ahead and delve into the pre-flight checklist, as there really is a lot of news and information to get to before we may fully indulge you with your in-flight entertainment. Well, folks, this 2016 presidential election cycle has certainly exposed a lot of things with respect to the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media. The other aspect of it, and one of the reasons that we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, have been warning of the dangers of a Trump candidacy, has to do with our ability to express ourselves freely without fear of being punished for saying certain things. Well, we see that SiriusXM, the satellite radio conglomerate, has decided to punish radio talk show host and conservative pundit Glenn Beck due to statements made by nationally acclaimed author Brad Thor during last week's interview with said author. And of course, the reasoning given by SiriusXM for the temporary suspension as they consider the future relationship that they have with the independently produced Glenn Beck program was that the statements made by Thor could be construed as calling for the imminent assassination or harm to Donald Trump. Now, the reasoning behind that is kind of bizarre. The statements made by Thor were taken out of context. It was provided in the form of a hypothetical asking that whether Donald Trump overstepped his constitutional bounds and if the legislative branch of government continued and remained as spineless and feckless as they have been all throughout these disastrous 2 terms of the Barack Hussein Obama regime, what recourse would the American people have, seeing as the legislative branch would not impeach Trump as to how to get rid of him, how to get him out of office? Would it have to be something that would have dire consequences for the nation at large? SiriusXM took it upon themselves to consider that as a type of claim for assassination, and this is something that Matt Drudge, the new Pravda of the Trumper camp of the mafioso quafioso, attempted to fan the flames with. He was essentially saying that Brad Thor was calling for the assassination of Trump, and he fanned the flames saying that Beck was condoning this. Does that make any sense whatsoever? Not really when you look at the context of a hypothetical. If we're not allowed to discuss things in hypotheticals, it means that the ability to discuss any type of scenario which might play out in the future is curtailed. Of course, that is something that should be expected with those who are supporting a candidate who has openly stated on numerous occasions that we should open up our libel laws in order, or rather our libel laws, so in order to basically have it to where he could sue anyone who speaks out against him. Of course, does this coalesce with our fundamental and inalienable rights as they are endowed to us by our Creator, the God of nature? The only answer that I can provide to that is no, it does not. But nothing of that magnitude or of that serious impact matters to the mafioso quafioso. He is in it for himself just as he has been in it for himself for the vast majority of his damn near 70 years on this planet. We have to come back to a modicum of sanity in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. And the only way that we're going to be able to do that is to go back to the original composition of the United States Constitution. Folks, that's why on last night's program we announced the need for the constitutional compositionist movement. That is a movement which will be external from pre-existing political parties, a movement that will be able to overcome these hurdles and adversities placed in the path of the true ultimate wielders of sovereignty in this nation, we the people. It must be that way because the system itself has been so corrupted by those nefarious forces who want nothing less than the utter annihilation of the United States of America as we know and love it. We just cannot ignore this or sweep it under the rug or candy coat it. Our liberties and indeed our very sovereignty as a representative republic are in dire jeopardy here.
Yo, I got some news for some folks, and I'm going after not really going after them. I'm just going to bring this to everybody's attention. There's an individual on social media, Facebook namely, that posted this from Alan West. Alan West, wrote an article on it. And this individual, when he posted it, he says, I applaud SiriusXM Radio for their decision to suspend Glenn Beck's radio program. Hashtag Trump 2016. Now, me being the individual that I am, with respect to other people's First Amendment rights, I responded. I said, so much for the First Amendment. Of course, those of us who understand the United States Constitution knew that Trump and his ilk hate the First Amendment when it doesn't fit their narrative. And that's exactly what this is all about. It doesn't fit the narrative of the quaff waffler. So, what happens? He assembles all of his couch commandos from the bowels of their mother's basements to amass and assimilate onto Facebook and social media to applaud this decision. So yeah, let's applaud, somebody exercising their First Amendment rights. Way to go. And of course...
Well, you mean trampling on their exercising of their First Amendment rights.
Sure, yeah, but they applaud it when Trump says, I can walk out in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody in the face, and they would still vote for me.
Mm-hmm.
And not lose any voters, people would still vote for me. Go ahead and punch him in the face, I'll pay your legal fees, I promise.
In the past, we'd take people like that out on stretchers.
So it's okay for Trump to advocate violence against the sovereign citizens who are not even running for political office, but yet SiriusXM, or should I call them seriously expletive deleted.
Well, I do have to say something with respect to SiriusXM, and the fact that they are a privately owned entity means that, no, there really isn't First Amendment violations here, but there's something greater than that. The whole idea of a free press, the whole idea of being able to express ourselves, to speak out about the concerns that we have with respect to whomever is vying for the highest office in the land, is sacrosanct. It is a quintessential part of what it means to be a popular sovereign in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. The problem that we are encountering now is that there is this push to just silence anybody at the drop of a hat. There is this blame game that seems to be coming to fruition. It's fermenting within the bowels of the American system of polity. And the question is, where is it going to lead us as a nation? Because we really do need to pause for a moment here, folks, and take a serious moment to reflect upon what is occurring within the United States. Because what we are doing is we are turning our backs onto our fundamental principles. We are abandoning those principles that were the guiding light for our founding fathers. So not only are we betraying our forebears who shed blood and lost their lives and worked diligently to construct this representative republic of ours, but we're also betraying the up-and-coming generations, and indeed those generations which have yet to be born. It's something we can ill afford to do right now, but we are on the path to ruination. And why? Because we've bought into some cult of personality? Is that really in the best interests of the United States of America and above all the popular sovereigns? I think the answer is no. And I had a dear friend of mine come out and say, when I posted this on social media, that I should be more upset about people going out and protesting Trump. No, I am not going to be more upset about people exercising their fundamental and inalienable rights. While it is true that no one has the right to be heard, because that can be found in Article Non, Section Existent, Clause 0, it does not also follow that anyone has the right to be denied work, or does not have the right to make their living. What this is tortious interference of a contract. It's going down the mantra of the cancerous doctrine of political correctness, attempting to tear this nation apart at the seams. We have got to get past this. We have got to overcome this and come back to a modicum of sanity in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. And again, this is why we brought up the constitutional compositionist movement. That is the movement that will bring us back to sanity. That is what will take us away from all of these diabolical, twisted schemes to deprive us of our fundamental and inalienable rights.
But wait, it gets better, Randy.
Because
there's a response to what I put on here. Now, this other individual says, like everyone, don't stomp on the Constitution. They keep changing it to suit themselves. I guess you are one of those stupid Clinton supporters. The female dog is a murderer. Now, again,
why is it that they always jump to the conclusion that we support Clinton?
Yeah.
I hate that.
And they want to throw this thing out, well, everybody stomps on the Constitution, so it's okay. Everybody, that's their counter to this. And what they don't understand is, people like you and I, we're doing everything we can to curtail that, to minimize that. And the way to do that is, well, we're doing it now. We are making America smart again. Because it seems that the American population has been dumbed down, made to be dependent, and vastly democratic. Why? Because they've fallen into this lull of complacency, and they were bit by the snakes of political correctness, revisionist history, and indoctrination. So they've been dumbed down. We have to make them smart again. We have to make America smart again. I'm not worried about making America great. America's great. It's already the greatest nation on the face of the planet. We can make it greater than what it is, but that entails people becoming smart again.
Well, yes, it means that we would have to return to the United States Constitution and the fundamental tenets that are contained within the four corners of that sacred document. And it's amazing to me, if we go back to last summer, the summer of political correctness and moral relativism, we see that this whole notion of just silencing somebody who goes against the politically correct narrative is gaining rapid acceleration. It is showing that there is a type of moral decay and a degeneration of the American character, spirit, heritage, and above all, national identity that is being orchestrated by these Fabian socialists who have taken every position that they can to basically diametrically oppose anything that is in the best interest of the true ultimate wielders of sovereignty, we the people. The more that we encounter these problems, the more we have to actually come up with real-world, practicable solutions that can be achieved. But again, as we repeated on last night's program, we cannot expect there to be instant gratification when it comes to all of this. It's not going to be something we can achieve overnight. We have to be willing to walk the long, windy, and oft-times dangerous path to achieve liberty. But remember, that's what our founding fathers had to do as well. That is what they encountered time and again all throughout the course of that long, drawn-out, bloody affair known as the American War of Independence. And they came so close on numerous occasions to facing defeat. to seeing the end of the cause of independence, the cause of liberty, the cause of justice, and the cause of true equality, meaning equal opportunities, not equal outcomes, that had they been any less in their belief in the natural law tenets that underpin this entire system, they would have backed down. They would have surrendered. They would have given up. We are so fortunate that they were such men of character, men that believed that sacred honor took paramount position and prominence over everything else. And that is also something that we desperately need to get back to in this once thriving country of ours. We have so lost our sense of national identity, and believe me, folks, that is by design. This is not by mistake. It's not some fluke. It's something that has been intentionally foisted upon us by these Fabian socialists, by these historical revisionists, by the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media. They want to demoralize us. They want us to lose all hope, because they then think at that point they have the perfect opportunity by which to destroy us. And make no mistake about it, that is what they are about. They are there to destroy this country, and the best way to go about destroying this country is to deprive the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty of their authority, and to allow these external forces to come in and manipulate the system. Well, we cannot, we will not, we shall never tolerate nor stand for that. And that means opposing Donald Trump when he acts in ways that goes to threaten our free speech, goes to threaten our fundamental and inalienable rights, which were endowed to us by our Creator.
Yeah, and ultimately it comes down to one simple premise: 6-2 or fight. Now, folks, if you've heard us mention this before, and if you missed the clarification on what that is, 6.2 refers to Article 6, Clause 2 of the Constitution, the Supremacy Clause, where it states that the United States Constitution, all laws which are made or which shall be made, and all treaties to be made or which shall be made, are known as the supreme law of the land. Okay? So, all of our laws, at every single level, have to be made in pursuance or have to follow the Constitution. And if we are not willing to uphold the supreme law of the land, because that's our binding tie. That's our unification. Trump wants to talk about uniting this and uniting this. Trump couldn't unite his posterior with two sets of jaws of life pushing on each side, because his quaff is shoved so far up there, it's prohibiting it from happening. Okay? Trump cannot unite anything. He doesn't want to unite anything. All this talk about unification is a play right out of, well, take your pick of whatever propagandistic material and tool you want to use. They all speak about it. It refers to labeling. And the only thing that can truly unite we the people is our shared Constitution. And that is why it is important that everybody understands 6-2 or fight. You want your freedoms, you want your liberties, it's time for you to step up and maintain them. It's time for others to step up and maintain them for themselves and their posterity. It is our obligation and duty. And if it means opposing people like Trump, Clinton, Bernie Sanders, or anybody else that throws their hat in the ring because they don't want to uphold the supreme law of the land and adhere to it, then so be it. I don't care how conservative somebody may say they are, how much of a constitutionalist they may say they are. If they don't want to fall in line with it, then I don't want them holding position of authority. Period.
And it's funny that you mention that, because Jeff Sessions is coming out and saying that he's basically putting out this mandate for the leaders of the gutless opposition party, or GOP, basically telling them to get behind Trump or be threatened to lose their seat of power. Hey, I've got a news flash for you, Mr. Sessions. I think you probably need to worry a bit more about your own seat. I think you've got bigger problems on your plate to deal with than telling other people what to do. It's pretty bad what you did. The betrayal you did will never be forgotten. We will never forget the way that you threw your arms around the mafioso, quafioso, and betrayed your constitutional principles and values. You show us that you are not committed to any type of constitutional principles. You show us that you are about tearing this nation apart, and for one, I'm sick and tired of it. I'm sick and tired of the Constitution always being betrayed by those who have taken an oath of office to uphold, defend, and promote it. Clearly, you don't take your oath seriously. Clearly, you don't think that it matters. Well, I have news for you again, Mr. Sessions. Far more Americans than you might realize do care. We care about the future of this nation. We care about the posterity of this nation, just as our founding fathers did. And that is why we are taking this principled stance that we are right here and right now, as I and Jeremy speak into this microphone. Because, as Jeremy just mentioned, it is our duty, it is our obligation, and above all, it is our responsibility to ensure that the Constitution is adhered to. We are the ultimate wielders of sovereignty. The Constitution belongs to us. It does not belong to the politicians. It damn sure does not belong to the mafioso, quafioso, Donaldoff, or the Don Trumpolini.
Well,
and the reason that I can say that with such conviction, as I am right now, is because it's not for sale.
Well, he doesn't see any value in it, so, he wouldn't have it anyways. And, again, that comes back down to the point in the issue of the Constitution is what binds us all together as a unified country, a unified group of citizens. A family unit, if you will. Now, for those of you out there that have families, ask yourself this question. Are you going to allow anything to come in and disrupt your family unit, disrupt your family, and tear it apart, bit by bit, piece by piece, one member at a time? Are you willing to allow that to happen? Because if you're willing to allow it to happen to the country, and there are people who are willing to allow that to happen to the country, those individuals, sadly, I have no choice but to believe otherwise, that they would allow that to happen to their own family. See, this is not about us individually. It's about something that is greater than all of us as a sum of a whole. It's about the fundamental principles behind it. It's about everything that creates that unification. This is greater than ourselves, but it's our obligation and our duty to maintain it. It's our obligation and duty and responsibility to make sure that our future generations maintain it. How do we do that? We have to make sure that they know it exists. They have to understand it. It's our obligation as parents to teach it to our children. And if we don't understand it enough to teach it to our children, well, parenting is one of those things, that's not something you can delegate to anybody else to do. It's not the school's job to do. It's not the Department of Education's job. It's not the state. It's not the government. It's nobody else's responsibility but yours and mine and Randy's, so on and so forth. That is one of the principles that unifies us. Again, the Constitution is the key to this whole debacle that we're facing. Everything that we've got going on, all the issues, you swirl them all up, put them in a cauldron, stir them nice and hard and thick, and the solution to all of that little problems right there, that witch's brew, is the Constitution. It's the antidote to those things.
Of course it is. It is so much more than merely being the supreme law of the land. You have to realize that the Constitution defines our role as citizens. It even defines citizenship itself. It is such an important document. It is the cornerstone of all that we hold near and dear in this country. And that is why it is so troubling to see that it is being opposed from all sides now. It is amazing to see that one could be called a fundamentalist. One could be called out of step with reality for seeking to ensure that the Constitution is upheld and enforced and seeking to preserve it. That is now some radical, twisted point of view, if you were to buy into the narrative peddled by the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media. But to look at what SiriusXM did to Glenn Beck here is just a shock to me. Look at all the sorts of vulgarity that they allow to be espoused on their shows. Listen to how they allow any type of profanity to be spewed across their airwaves, and they don't bat an eye. But when an author mentions a hypothetical, they decide to take the show off the air. I want to know how much Trump paid them to push this issue. I want to know how much Trump paid them to betray their soul and their stance for freedom. I thought the whole purpose of satellite radio was to provide an avenue by which people could speak their minds. But I'm guessing that they're looking for people who don't have minds, that they're looking for people to just kowtow the politically correct mantra, drivel, and lie. I'm sorry. I don't have, room for this. I don't have time to tolerate this nonsense that is the cancerous doctrine of political correctness. It is going to such a point now that it is threatening to tear this country apart. Like we have always said here on Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, we must go back to the Constitution. It is what centers us. It is what guides us. It provides us with a light to the truth, and when you turn to the truth, that is the method and manner through which you ensure that the vitality and viability of this once thriving and flourishing representative republic can be handed down to posterity. After all, we were charged to do that. That is our duty. That is our obligation. That is our responsibility. And as Jeremy said, it's like raising a family. You cannot delegate it. And contrary to what Trump has said, not everything is up for negotiation. Our fundamental and inalienable rights are not up for negotiation. They're non-negotiable. They're non-delegable. But he would put them up on the bargaining table. He would put them up as a sacrificial lamb to gain whatever twisted goal or machination that he has running around in that harebrain of his. But we can ill afford that.
Yeah, and again, we see that, as you mentioned, it's okay for certain things to be said, but a hypothetical. And I don't see anything wrong with Brad Thor's statements in the least bit.
No, I don't either.
I see nothing wrong in the least bit, for the simple fact that, guess what? Entire nations and dictatorial regimes have all been centered around hypotheticals just like that. And they've even taken it a step further. There have been countries where leadership is shifted because of the plotting of assassinating a leader or a potential leader.
Well, there's been a world war started by it.
Yes, and there's been attempts to end World War II because of it. Remember Operation Valkyrie? Hitler's own generals 7 times tried to assassinate him.
And for good reason.
Yes.
He was a madman that had led the world to war. Much like Trump, he had basically built his entire political ascendancy on a bunch of hollow, shallow, empty, meaningless platitudes. He looked for ultimate scapegoats to lay the blame on everybody else, and that is how he was able to bring forth this mob-like mentality that thrust Germany into a position that it had never taken before. Mm-hmm. And if you watch what has happened all throughout this 2016 presidential election cycle thus far, there has been a lot of that type of mentality. Like the Lion Trumpidians that have come to the forefront who have been singing the praises of SiriusXM for suspending Glenn Beck's program. Now, let's flip the tables for a moment here. Let's say that SiriusXM all of a sudden said that they would suspend any coverage of Donald Trump's rallies, or Donald Trump's speeches, or Donald Trump's press conferences due to his incitement of violence, as he has done. Would they be singing the same tune, or would the tune be totally different? Would it be a totally different idea that they would be foisting? And of course, we know the answer to that. It would be a different tune. It would be one of whining and complaining about how their dearly beloved Trumpenführer has been trampled upon. Why is it that this sort of hypocrisy has been allowed to infect the heart, souls, and minds of many Americans? Why is it that there are Americans who are longing for the day that an authoritarian strain would be able to overcome the body politic of this once thriving republic of ours? That is baffling to me. It's troubling to me. That really puts a great weight on the heart, because I don't want to see this country suffer down the path of a bloviating, diehard dictator.
There's a sequential order of how this has come about over the almost year now, approaching a year. And Trump supporters who jumped on board the Trump train, signed their little death warrant and, punched their ticket, the one-way ticket to absolute certain demise. Remember, Randy, they began with small attacks. Oh, you're an idiot. You're a fool. I'm just going to block you. I don't want nothing to do with you. And then it escalated from that to, you don't know what you're talking about. I think you need to go reread this and read that and blah, blah, blah. And then, Trump this, Trump this, Trump this. And then it escalated to, you're un-American. And between now and then, it's escalated to, oh, you're a Clinton supporter.
And it's only going to get worse. There is no signs of this
what
getting better.
What will they think of next?
What they'll think of. You should be shot. You should be hanged. You are Rouse Juden. Rouse Juden.
Yeah. And that's the thing. This is, again, these individuals are predictable. Why? Because we've seen it throughout the annals of history. You've had the Gestapo, the Sturmgewehr. They did the same thing in Germany. A vast majority of them, and for what people don't realize is there was many different branches of the Gestapo and the SS Stormtroopers, the Sturmgewehr.
Yeah, the Stoopstoffel.
Yeah, and not all of them wore jackboots, bully helmets, and walked around with a gun, and if you spoke out against their Fuhrer, shot you dead in the streets. The vast majority of them were dressed as common folk who sat in taverns, who sat in cafes, just behaved as normal individuals, and they were the rabble-rousers. They were the ones that would get things started, and then the henchmen would come in, the jackboots, and they would point them out. They're talking about mein Fuhrer. And then the jackboots would be the ones that put the bullet in their head right there in the street. See, those individuals, those rabble-rousers, those same group of Gestapo are known as the Trumpstapo. You see all these individuals, these couch commandos that are taking to social media and perpetuating these attacks. Mm-hmm. Perpetrating and perpetuating these attacks is what they're doing. You don't see Trump on Facebook or on Twitter calling people un-American. Individual people that he has no idea who they are. Maybe John Barron or John Miller is, but certainly not Trump.
Well, you know, Jeremy, there is something about the Gestapo that was even more nefarious than what you had mentioned there. They did not have that many agents working within the Gestapo. They relied 98% on the German people to self-report, to go in and report to the offices, "My neighbor spoke out against mein Führer."
You mean
Sieg
like
Heil.
Georgi Swartz?
Right.
Uh-huh.
And what it did is it was designed to create this sense of paranoia that filled the hearts, souls, and minds of the average German citizen. And they moved to make every political party, every political association, other than the Nazi associations, illegal,
Yep.
punishable by death. And that is the type of totalitarian, authoritarian thinking that we should never allow to take root in the United States. It is so contradictory, diametrically opposed to everything that we hold near and dear in this country. We are about rugged individualism. We are about being able to express our minds and holding our government's feet to the fire so that we can hold them accountable. It's one of the reasons why we have oft-times repeated on past episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, that we really do dislike it when people come out and say, well, look, the Constitution's an antiquated document because it's not doing enough to protect us. Well, what have you been doing to protect it? There is this symbiotic relationship that exists between the ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty and the Constitution itself. It is a contractual document. Any type of contract is going to require one of the parties to seek the redress of grievances should a breach occur. But what we see is there are so many people who have become so complacent, so rested on their laurels, that they just think that the document has failed them instead of standing up for it. This is another part of the dangerous aspect with that erroneous notion of calling the Constitution a living document. Because then it gives people these delusions that the Constitution should therefore be self-enacting, self-perpetuating to protect their liberties, when in fact nothing could be further from the truth. We have to be proactive in the maintenance and safeguarding of our fundamental and inalienable rights. It's the Constitution that gives us carte blanche to do so.
And the vast majority of the individuals that say it's antiquated, it's not doing enough to protect our rights, the vast majority of them have never even picked up the document and read it. So they're making this assertion that, oh, it doesn't protect our rights. You know, I know my rights. Really? I've encountered numerous people. I know my rights. You can't do this. I know my rights. I have freedom of speech. Well, if you stand, and here's a scenario. If you stand on a public sidewalk in front of somebody's house and you are yelling threats, making insinuations that you're going to blow their house up, you're going to kill their family members, but you're standing on the public sidewalk, is that freedom of speech?
Yes.
Yes, it is. But at the same time, the second you step off that public sidewalk and onto that person's property, it no longer becomes freedom of speech. This is what these individuals don't understand. When scenarios and situations like that occur, and we've seen them numerous times, you know, we saw it with Michael Brown. Oh, he wasn't hurting nobody. He had the right to go into that store. Yes, he did. But he didn't have the right to rob the person. They want to latch on to one facet, again, that fits their narrative, and they want to omit everything else. They do not have a truly functioning, working knowledge of the Constitution.
And what it comes down to on top of that, Jeremy, is that they don't understand that our rights end where another popular sovereign individual's rights begins.
Sure.
If our system didn't work that way, we would be able to do any sort of crime or outlandish behavior. Again, there has to be order, and order comes about from the notion that your rights end where another begins. That's what the criminal justice system is about. Preserving those borders to protect the rights of the sovereign individual from encroachments from other sovereign individuals. It's wrong to use your rights in such a way as to besmirch, belittle, or to take away the rights of the other. But again, the government is not just allowed to come in and say you've taken away the rights of others. It has to be done under due process under the law. In other words, it has to be adjudicated, proven beyond a reasonable doubt that that is exactly what occurred. And when we look at the case of Glenn Beck and SiriusXM, there has been no proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Their first thing is to jump to punishment before investigating. They are now looking into what could be said or done with his future things. I think that Beck ought to sue SiriusXM for breach of contract.
Absolutely.
I think that there should be serious legal ramifications for this. And if you have a SiriusXM subscription, I suggest that this would be a great time to boycott and demand a refund. Because what they are doing is wrong. What they are doing is truly un-American, because they are denying there to be an avenue of discussion. Now, I know it may not be popular or politically correct for me to say what I'm saying, but quite frankly, I don't give a damn. I'm sick and tired of seeing the nation operate in such a form and fashion that is working against those fundamental tenets that properly defined what it was and is to be an American. You see, they're trying to sow the seeds of balkanization in the hearts, souls, and minds of the American people to pit us against one another. That makes it much easier to divide and conquer. That is the tactic and the strategy that the Fabian socialists are employing, and guess what? That is the same tactic that the New York billionaire, businessman, real estate tycoon, and all-around vulgarian Donald J. Trump, or John Barron, or John Miller, is employing as well. He is using those tactics. He is dividing the Republican Party. Why? To pave an easy path to victory for his big friend, the one that he was the top donor for when she was the senator for the state of New York, Hillary Clinton, to get to the White House. Do you honestly think that he has changed? Do you honestly think he's had a major change of heart? I don't.
I don't think he has either, and I don't think he ever will.
No.
And we've asked the question before. Well, he's now for this, and when he was against it, now he's against this when he was for it, blah, blah, blah. It only brings up the question that we've mentioned several times before. Was he lying then? Is he lying now? Or has he always been lying? And we can see, here's an example of exactly what you're talking about with this divisionism, with this indoctrination within a party. You mentioned it with the Socialist Party in Germany, Nazi Germany. Have any other kind of political party other than socialism was basically signing your own death warrant. It was a violation of the law worthy of punishable by death. Trump has actually taken a step in that direction when he said, this is the Republican Party, not the Conservative Party.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we have made the connection that the Republicans, the GOP, so on and so forth, are really no different than the Democrats. And because the Democrats are rooted in Fabian socialism, that means that what Trump is doing is advocating for pure socialism.
Well, let's take another historical example of Hitler. Remember after the failed beer hall putsch in Munich in 1923, he was browbeating and intimidating the judges, and he was able to get one of the judges to be very friendly to him, basically giving him the lightest sentence. Well, let's look at Judge Curiel, who is in charge of the Trump University fraud case, who has just unsealed a 381-page document, give or take, because Trump said that he's a Mexican and therefore is ruling against me and is going to unseal all of this. No, he unsealed it because you went out and did those sorts of attacks, because you were trying to smear a seated judge. if there was a problem with the judge, then you move for a writ of mandamus. You let your legal team handle it. But no, what you were trying to do there, mafioso quafioso, was to intimidate a sitting officer of the court. That is beyond scandalous. That is beyond destructive. And quite frankly, that is what speaks to the same concerns that nationally acclaimed author Brad Thor had with respect to the mafioso quafioso. He is acting like a thug that is above the law. He is acting like someone whom the law should never apply to. And again, if you recall, the United States of America is a nation of laws, not of men. That means that we are all treated equally under the confines of the law. That is equal protection under the law. But Trump clearly does not believe in that. Trump clearly does not want to adhere to something like that. And if you really think about that, it means he's no different than Hillary Rotten Clinton. So again, to all of these people who keep saying that Hillary is the greater of two evils and that Trump is the lesser of two evils, just drop it. Because it's not working. I don't see any amount of water between the two. When it comes to the Constitution, they are both equally villainous, and it doesn't matter whether one's an excrement sandwich and soggy and the other one's merely an excrement sandwich. They're both excrement sandwiches.
6-2 or fight. That's what it boils down to. And again, with the aspect of Trump thinking that he's above the law, how many times have we seen him operate that way with eminent domain, with with Trump University, this whole scandal with the judge. What else is there? Bankruptcy. When he filed those bankruptcies, it's various different things. When a person walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, more than likely it's a duck. He thinks he's above the law. He thinks he can skirt it. Why? Because he's Donald Trump. He has the mentality. Well, if I tell them to do it, they're going to do it. It's going to be huge. Trust me, I know. It's going to happen. I'll make it happen. I know. Trust me, I can tell you this. You're not telling anybody anything. All you're doing is flapping your gaping cake hole and brushing your hair aside. Nobody cares. Nobody gives a damn about you. You're so full of yourself. Just shut up already. Go to hell.
Yeah. He only cares about himself and not the nation. That's the problem. Remember when he had that interview with Megyn Kelly, whom he ran away from during that debate, and raised all that money supposedly for the vets, although that money has not materialized in the hands of the various veteran groups. He said that if he lost the presidency, it would be a colossal waste of time and money. I'm sorry, but I thought this was a bit more than your damn money. I thought this was a bit more than you. It's supposed to be about the country. So as Jeremy said, why don't you go straight to hell, you worthless, pompous son of a female dog? Because we're sick and tired of having to deal with your childish antics that have no place in an open and honest society like that of the United States of America. It is time to get back to the Constitution, but the problem is we have people like you who are so blinded by that god-awful pelt that you wear on the top of your head and think is fashionable, putting obstacles and adversity into the path to the restoration of this country. Stop it. Just stop it. Go away. Go enjoy the worthless irrelevance that you so rightly deserve.
There's another instance that speaks to his egotism. That maniacal, narcissistic, vain, egotistical attitude that he trots around with. When he voted in the primary, he voted for himself. People asked, what did it feel like to vote for yourself? Oh, it was an honor. It was a huge, let me tell you, it was so honorable to vote for myself. Really? You say it was an honor to vote for yourself? What a conceited troglodyte. And then he turns right around and says, people ask why I'm doing this. Because America's been so great to me, but yeah, I'm going to have to make her great again. But she's been great to me, and I'm just doing this because I want to give something back. You want to give
really
you want to give something back. Why
Drop out.
why don't you find the family of skunks that you robbed of their young to put on your head? Take it back, figure out some kind of way. Maybe you could talk to the doctors and the scientists over in Sweden that cloned Dolly the sheep. Maybe they could bring that skunk pelt back to life and give it back to its proper owners. And then drop out and go to hell.
Yeah. You see, he has been so divisive, and the graduates of Pavlov School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media have been so collaborative and complicit with him that it has led to this type of mudslinging that has become the hallmark of the 2016 presidential election cycle. I have never seen it as bad as it currently is in my entire life. Now, granted, I've only been on this earth for a short time. Nevertheless, it shows that there has been this rapid acceleration of the deterioration of the code of decorum in this country. There is no sense of common decency anymore when the worthless type of ad hominem attacks that have been thrown out by Trump time and time again ad nauseum have become cheered by the people. That is now considered a strength instead of a weakness. What in the hell has happened to us as a people and as a nation? We have lost our moral compass, we have lost our way, we have forgotten who we are, and we have forgotten just how important the supreme law of the land, the United States Constitution, really is. And the longer that we continue to twist in the wind like this and not have any clue as to what it is that is so vitally important about that, to say that it's not protecting us anymore, or to buy into the propagandistic lines that have been dropped by the Donaldoff with respect to Ted Cruz, that shows that we have clearly lost our way. We don't know what common decency is anymore. And I, for one, am highly troubled by this, because it means we've got much bigger problems down the road. And for all of those who sit there and say that we need to come together in a tyranny of false unity behind the mafioso quafioso because he would save the Supreme Court, I've got a news flash for you folks. If we have lost our moral compass, we have much bigger problems than the Supreme Court.
Yeah. When was the last time that the Supreme Court actually decided the fate of an election? Wasn't it Bush Gore? Where they actually stepped in and decided the fate of an election? Now, I can't remember who all was on that court.
Rehnquist, you
Clarence
had
Thomas, Souter,
Scalia, Souter, you had Sandra Day O'Connor,
yep,
you had John Paul Stevens. Trying to remember the others.
Yeah, the point
Kennedy,
is,
of course.
Yeah, and the point is, we no longer have Rehnquist, O'Connor, Souter, Stevens. I think Souter's out too, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Breyer is still there.
Yeah, Breyer is still there. So there's 4 Supreme Court justices that have actually changed hands over the past 15 years. Okay. How much of an impact on our country has that made? In the grand scheme of things, how much of an impact has that made?
Not much.
Not much. And what little impact it did make, it certainly wasn't, they weren't impacts or events or rulings that were actually in favor of the Constitution completely. Mm-mm. So we've seen the degradation of the Supreme Court, the degeneration of it, so to speak. Now, what on God's green earth does anybody think will happen, and why do they think that someone like Trump is going to appoint Supreme Court justices that are going to uphold the Constitution and defend it and rule by it, when he said he sees no value in the Constitution? He never saw any value in it. That's why he never read it. Now, when a person makes that kind of a statement, How in the blue hell can anybody believe that he's actually going to appoint someone to the Supreme Court or nominate them that's actually going to follow the Constitution? We know Hillary's not going to do it. We know for a fact she's not going to do it. She's going to try and stack the courts the way FDR did. You know what? Trump will actually take it a step further than that. Because Trump thinks he's the bigliest of bigs. He's a winner. And he surrounds himself with winning people. That means they're all handpicked by me. And let me tell you, trust me, they're bigly, they're huge, they're smart individuals. They have not such bigly brains like I have. But let me tell you, they have bigly brains. Mine's just the bigliest of all the bigliest brains. He will try to make the court to where it goes from 9 justices up to God knows how many. Or take him down from 9, maybe down to 3. You don't know what's going to happen with him. Even though his cult is predictable, we know what their mantra is. It's the same mantra that the Barack Obama supporters held in 2008 and 2012. The exact same thing. They're cut from the same sackcloth. They're cut from the same garbage bag. Pretty much. Let's not insult cloth here, garbage bag. And they're behaving no different than what Obama supporters did. So if they're doing all this to rally around their occult leader, yet he's completely unpredictable, he's set all of this up. Remember, he's the one who started the whole thing about being an outsider, and he's doing this because you can't trust any of the politicians. That was all set up to namely go directly after Ted Cruz. Why? Because Ted Cruz is the only individual that held his office for the shortest amount of time. And he was the only one that was running that actually stood on the grounds of the Constitution. None of the other ones did. Only him. And Cruz was a detrimental factor to the agenda of Trump. Because now if you look at things, Ben, I'm a rocket surgeon victim Carson. Then you had Hamburger, Krispy Kreme. You're looking at Rand Paul now as quasi-endorsing Trump. Rubio, I'm, the backseat rump rider.
He's all out.
Yeah, and it's just all of these individuals that were running that have dropped out. The only one that is dropped out or suspended his campaign that is not looking at endorsing Trump is Ted Cruz.
Yeah.
Oh, well, he signed a compact. He signed a pledge. Screw your pledge. Screw the pledge. You know why? Because the pledge doesn't mean jack crap.
Especially when the party has shown no loyalty to the supreme law of the land, the Constitution. Why do we need to coalesce behind a tyranny of false unity? That is something that those who want us all to line up behind Trump have a very difficult time explaining. They have basically provided me with no convincing argument that shows me that this is worth the paper that it's written on, that pledge is worth anything whatsoever.
They never will.
See, and of course they never will, because they never can, because it's not based in reality. It is not based in core principles. It is not based in the truth. You see, that is the problem that we're facing here. Donald Trump has the highest negatives of any candidate ever to run. He's higher in his negatives than Hillary Rotten Clinton. He's higher in his negatives than Vermont Senator Nerdface Boy Sanders. He is a walking, talking Waffle House disaster. He is the biggest waffle out there with the hairiest syrup you could pour on it, and it's just not going to work. But the whole problem that we have here is that we now have people like Rinse and Repeat Paribus, please, trying to say that, oh, well, you can't judge him. It's not a Christian thing to judge him. If you don't, the mafioso quafioso might make you go swim with the syrup fish. Well, no, I'm not gonna buy into that. I'm not going to buy into it because the Constitution's more important than my own personal gratification. It's more important than my own personal comfort or the comfort of Jeremy or the comfort of our first Air Marshal, Mr. Nelson Ward. The Constitution is the end-all be-all. Period.
Yeah.
That's
6-2 or fight.
It is.
6-2
or fight.
And that's essentially what it boils down to. And people say, well, you guys have gotten, awful aggressive on this. You're damn right we have. Because we understand
what's at stake.
What's at stake. We have a whole slew of cherished listeners that know what's at stake. Every single person that listens to our show, that retweets our show, who shares it with their friends and family, they take the time and listen. They know what's at stake. And they're seeing the same things that we're seeing. In some cases, they're seeing things more so than what we're seeing. We don't know everything, folks. We never claim to have known everything. We never will claim to know everything. But we know this. Our country, our republic is in peril. And it is up to us to preserve it. It is up to the constitutional
compositionists
to preserve it, to maintain it, and to make it just as perpetual as it was 235 years ago, and for another 235 years, and another 235 years beyond that.
Yeah. But of course, it does require that we be proactive. It does require that we maintain and safeguard our fundamental and inalienable rights. This is why we bring this stuff, like Glenn Beck's radio program being temporarily suspended on SiriusXM. Yes, we're getting tired of having to talk about the mafioso quafioso. We're getting tired of having to hear about him. But you know what we're more tired of? You know what's really making us sick and tired? We're tired of seeing our cherished Constitution being trampled all over upon by those very same individuals who once claimed to stand for the Constitution. I do not, for the life of me, see how anyone can be both for the Constitution and in support of Donald Trump. Because fact is, you cannot be both pro-Constitution and at the same time supportive of Donald Trump. Donald Trump has assumed every position that is contrary to the clear and precise language contained within the four corners of the Constitution. It shows that he goes against all that we hold near and dear in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. If we don't start to take these things seriously, if we don't start holding people accountable, these problems are merely going to continue to fester against us. They are going to work against the societal fabric of this country, and we're already seeing the detrimental signs of that. The more and more that it happens, you're going to see American citizen pitted against American citizen in even worse conflicts than what has unfurled thus far during this fiasco and debacle known as the 2016 presidential election cycle.
Absolutely. And, to clear, again, for those of you who may be joining us late on this live broadcast, you're going to hear quite often from here on out many new phrases, many new words, many new ideas that are all going to be used to support the ultimate solution to all of our problems. And just again, for clarification, 6-2 or fight refers to Article 6, Clause 2 of the Constitution, otherwise known as the Supremacy Clause, with it being the supreme law of the land. If we do not have the supreme law of the land, we must maintain it. If people want to take it from us, we fight. And now I know for the SiriusXM representatives listening in, blah blah blah, whatever. You can construe that however you want. Because the fact of the matter remains, it is 6-2 or fight. And it will always be 6-2 or fight. It will always be the Constitution above any and all things. when it comes to our freedoms and liberties. And it will always remain that until my final breath. And here's a spoiler alert for you. Even after I take my final breath, it will still be 6-2 or fight. It will carry on. I guarantee that.
Yeah. It comes down to the fact that we are in a fight for the hearts, souls, and minds of this country. The Fabian socialists have so poisoned our minds with the twin doctrines of political correctness and moral relativism that we're forgetting things. We're forgetting what matters, and that is diametrically opposed to what this system's based upon. This is why they hate the natural law tenets, and why they are working in every facet imaginable to strip apart our traditions and institutions. It is because they must strike at the fundamental building block of society. Now, what is the fundamental building block of society? It is none other than the family. This is why you see the gender-neutral bathroom issue. This is why you see the disastrous decision that was Obergefell allowing gay marriage. This is why you see marriage being put in the crosshairs of these radical Fabian socialist agendas. This is all designed to tear us apart as a nation. Why? Because if you tear apart the very foundation of society itself, you then put in place the ability to replace it with a twisted Fabian socialist dystopia. This Fabian socialist dystopia, of course, goes against our representative Republican form of government. They loathe and despise that. But remember that the original iconography of the Fabian socialist movement was to be a wolf in sheep's clothing. That's what they are about. They want to mix and intermingle to the point of destroying this country.
You know, and there's something I want to add to that. Everybody knows the group Anonymous. Now, we're not going to attack Anonymous. You know, they're going to do what they want to do. That's fine. You know, whatever they want to do. When it comes down to the legality of things, if they're breaking the law or have broken the law, eventually they will be caught. And that's neither here nor there. But the reason I bring them up is they have a slogan. And the slogan is, "We are coming." Well, guess what? We here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, we have a slogan too. Right along next to 6 Tour Fight, our slogan is, "We are here."
We are waiting. We are the watchmen.
Here. You don't have to worry about us coming. We're already here. And guess what? We're not going anywhere.
Nope.
Because there's nobody walking on this God's green earth big enough to make us stop. Nobody.
And of course, this is why we are taking the stance to defend Glenn Beck. I have seen far too many people come out and say that they are glad that Glenn Beck's program was temporarily suspended. Why? Because you disagree with what he said? I've heard it be said that they think he's gone off the deep end. So that's a reason to silence him? That's a reason to take away his ability to earn money, his ability to contribute to society at large, whether you agree with it or not? You see, that is almost down the lines, that is down the lines of what the Fabian socialists do. That goes against everything that our founding fathers fought to establish in that long, drawn-out, bloody affair known as the American War of Independence. We have to take these things seriously, but we are taking them in a nonchalant fashion, and our sovereignty, our liberty, everything that we value and cherish in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours is at stake here. And we have to stand up for these principles, or we are destined and are sure to lose them.
You know, again, bringing it back to the Constitution is our binding tie. That is what unifies us. If we do not stand together in unison of 6-2 or fight, guess what, folks? we will all hang separately. By hook or crook, it doesn't matter. And when I say hook or crook, I'm talking Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. People say, well, what's the reference to Trump and the hook? Well, he's the hook. He's the hook that all the bait has been placed on, that has been cast out there into all the little political fishies out there to see what kind of nibbles he can get and how many people he can catch.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Too many people, again, swarming around like little schools of fishies, not being able to think for themselves, just follow the leader. Abandon your principles. Follow the leader. Oh, you guys are blind. You don't know. You don't really know what's going on. No, we actually see the light. In fact, we actually hold the light. We hold the light in our hearts, and we speak the light. The light is the Constitution. We're not the ones who are blinded. Those of you that think we're blinded, and I'm not talking, again, directly to our cherished listeners. This goes out to all of these individuals, the ones of the passerbys, the ones that want to, do a drive-by death threat on our YouTube channel. That's fine. That's fine. We think it's kind of funny. We wish there was, a little bit more, because all it does is just prove that we're right. But all of these individuals that want to follow the occult known as Quafianism, and you want to say that we're the ones that are blind because, well, you can't see what Trump's really doing. No, we know exactly what he's doing. We know what he's doing. You, Trump supporters, are the ones who are blind. You are blinded by the veil known as abandonment of principles.
And isn't it destructive? Isn't it destructive to see what it is capable of accomplishing? Look at how far we have fallen throughout this election cycle thus far. When you realize that this was our election cycle to win from the beginning, there was so much positive energy at the start of this. And then Trump threw his quaff in the ring. And it has been a downward death spiral ever since. We have been seeing it get worse and worse. We have seen people go after those who have stood up against him and call them all sorts of vicious, unfair, ad hominem names. We've seen them try and basically threaten the lives of delegates who are hostile to Trump. We've seen them whine and complain about a rigged system, but then once he's gotten it, at least by the delegate count, all of a sudden that vanishes. Why are we not hearing the whining and complaining about just how rigged the system is? Is it because they think they've gotten what they've wanted? Is it because that was just done for political brownie points and had no relation to reality whatsoever? Now they are basically sitting there saying it's so great and wonderful to silence someone because they speak out against Trump. What the hell is wrong with you people? Don't you realize what it is that makes America great? And yes, that is a rhetorical question. So maybe you should stop using that platitude that makes no sense of make America great again until you have a remedial course in what it is that made America great in the first place. Oh, and by the way, that's the Constitution.
Which is still viable, still in existence, which means that America is still great. It's funny how that works, isn't it, Randy? I mean, I want to take it a step further with not just, Sirius doing this to Beck and delegates being threatened, their personal information being made private, among other things. But let's even take it down to another level. Chuck Nellis. How many times have we seen him in our short time on Twitter, his account suspended or banned or put in Twitter jail or whatever for speaking the truth? Look at individuals on Facebook. Their pages are shut down, suspended, because Quafferberg doesn't like people speaking out against Trump or Hillary or any other Fabian. See, when it comes down to individuals, the sovereigns, freely speaking and expressing their God-given rights and their thoughts and their opinions as a method of going through and vetting these candidates, and you want to silence the American people? Guess what's going to happen? You continue to silence the American people, there will be no such thing as free and honest open elections. There will be no such thing as a Republican form of government. There will be no such thing as being able to exercise your rights. Even those of you who are stifling the rights of others are going to lose your rights. You know why? Because these Fabians, they will keep you around just long enough until your usefulness no longer exists. And then guess what happens to you? You no longer exist. If you think I'm wrong about that, why don't you go and talk to, I don't know, everybody that was shot to death in the streets of Berlin in 1935? Oh, wait, you can't, unless you are into occultism, which you probably are if you follow Trump or any other Fabian, and you could perform some kind of witchcraft and demonography to conjure the dead and ask them that question. Failure to pay attention to history is most assuredly the utter doom and demise of you. Wake up.
Exactly so. Because if you abandon your principles and you allow everything to fall apart, as it is currently falling apart, as Jeremy just said, you lose everything. Think of what happened to even those in the Soviet Union that were originally the true champions of it. People like Trotsky. What happened to Trotsky? Trotsky was killed for his beliefs. He was killed for his beliefs, but he did say that they couldn't kill his ideas. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not one to just follow after a communist, except that he said something very accurate there. And that is, we have to stand up for who we are and to create an idea. We either stick together or we hang separately. Because they will move to deprive us. They will move to kill us. Because that is the only way that they would be able to silence us. But our idea, that of constitutional compositionism, is much bigger than that. Much stronger than that. It is so much more than all of that. And the reason I say that is it's based on those natural law tenets that are all-encompassing. They are greater than the sum of the parts. So the whole of this representative republic is greater than the sum of its parts. It must thereby be able to outlast us. And it cannot be silenced because it is the truth. And the truth is what sets everyone free. And that is why we stand resolute in this, our fight for liberty. Because make no mistake about it, folks, what right here and right now is an attempt to deprive us of our liberty. That is what they are working towards. And therefore we must stick together in resisting.
And again, I equate this back to the family. I know that I would do everything within my power, even if it took my final breath, to prevent anybody from coming in and destroying my family. It's my obligation. It's my obligation as the matriarch or the patriarch of the household. It's my wife's obligation as a matriarch. Together, working in concert with each other, not against each other, with no contentions. It's our obligation. And again, this translates into we the people. It is our obligation to make sure that our family, our republic, is our family. The principle behind it is our Constitution. When you forego that and you're willing to allow people to tear down your principles, you would be willing to let people tear down your family. These are not things that should be trifled with. These are not things that should be lackadaisical. These are not things that people should just bat a single eyelash at and cast to the wayside and move on. That is not what behaving in that fashion is not what made this country great to begin with. It is what destroys this country. It is what destroyed every other organized civil society that succumbed to those things. Again, I bring up the Israelites when they fled Egypt. At the bottom of Mount Sinai, when Moses went up the mountain to get the Ten Commandments, while he was gone, what happened? They started behaving like this. They gave away all the principles, everything they know to be true and just. And what happened to them? They perished. Whether physically, emotionally, or spiritually. And I, for one, will not stand by and allow that to happen to my country. I won't allow it to happen to any individual in this country, regardless of their political bent. And this is what really, really gets under the skin of these Fabianites, these troglodytic, little heathenistic, garden gnome punching heathens. They really, really hate it when I tell them I will be one of the first individuals to stand up and defend your rights. They don't like that. They don't know how to respond to that. It sends them into a cold shiver and quiver. They go apoplectic. It's like being dropped in one of the coldest rivers in the world in sub-degree temperatures, and then pull out. It's that kind of shock that hits them. And the only response that the vast majority of them have been able to conjure up from the bowels that they haven't emptied in 2 weeks because they're sitting on their mama's sofas in the basement is, yeah, but Trump. It's disgusting. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, because it goes against all that matters in this country. It goes against our rugged individualism. And the reason that it is that way is because we are expected to be the popular sovereigns. We are expected to stand up for our principles and our values. And we have allowed it to go too far, I think. Wouldn't you say that that's safe to say that we've allowed these things to fester for far too long, Jeremy?
Sure. In a way, and here's another analogy, but I promise you'll understand it. In a way, it's kind of like, and I really hate these things. But it's so apropos to this. You ever see those kid leashes? You have, people walk around the mall, they got their kids on a little doggy leash so that they can keep track of them, but yet really not really paying attention to them. Mm-hmm. And they set the length, so the leash will go out of the handle or out of the contraption so far to where they set a desired length of how far their child, their little poop unit running around, can deviate from them. What's happened is that lock has broken. So now that leash is full on all the way out, and it's only being held on by a thread. Mm-hmm. It's time to reach down, grab that leash, reel it back in. Not only reel it back in, but bring it in as close as humanly possible. In fact, put our hands on the child as to hold them. That way we know it's secure. Put our hands on the Constitution to know it's secured. Mm-hmm. Get rid of the leash The leash being equivalent to a shackle. We the people are being shackled from exercising our rights. We need to get rid of those shackles. Everybody says, "Oh, slavery ended and blah, and white man's guilt, and it's white guilt." And enough of that crap. I'm tired of hearing that. You know what? Here's an idea. Why don't you go ahead and actually look back into history and take a look at what slavery was really all about? Look at where it originated, and look how it came here to the United States. Or at that point in time, long before it was the United States. And look at some of those individuals who were slaveholders, especially in the South. What was it? 10% of the slaveholders in the South were actually African American individuals themselves.
Mm-hmm. First ever slaveholder in the United States was black.
Yes. So again, we see all this revisionist history crap, all this political correctness, all this indoctrination of the youth, the moral relativism, all that stuff being placed as shackles on we the people. And the only way to break those shackles, unlock them, and get rid of them, again, reach down and grab the leash, pull it in. Only you can break those shackles. You can't have government do it for you. You can't rely on someone to save you. You should never rely on somebody else to save you, except one individual. Well, two. Jesus Christ and yourself. That's it. Trump isn't going to save you. Ted Cruz isn't going to save you. None of these candidates that have run or may still be in the running or may even jump into third party, David French, they're not going to save you. When people shed that moniker and they shed that understanding and they get rid of that false sense of security that somebody is going to be elected to save them, and they reach down, grab themselves by the bootstraps, pull them up, and take hold of their obligation, responsibility, and duty, and learn what it means to save yourself, that's when you'll truly be free.
Yes. Because it is our duty, our obligation, as it has been since the inception of this nation over 230 years ago. Again, folks, we come together now because we realize just how important everything is. We realize what it is that is at stake. Our liberties, our way of life, our standard of living, that is all at risk. All because these charlatans, these hucksters, these wannabe potentates are gathering around like flies around a stick of excrement, hoping to lay the eggs that will give rise to the maggots of their twisted and diabolical schemes. It is up to us to stop that, as Jeremy was saying. We must be resolute to stand up and to do all that is necessary to rein in this sort of out-of-control Fabianism, because it is threatening to tear us apart. And the more we lose, the more difficult it becomes to bring this country back from the brink of ruin.
Mm-hmm. And there's just no other way to put it. And again, 6-2 or fight.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It is our position, our place. And that is where 6-2 or fight comes in. Folks, remember that we do all of this to empower you. We do all of this to give you the strength to keep moving forward, to take the righteous stance that is necessary for the maintained vitality and continued viability of this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. It is our country. It is our Constitution. Above all, it is our government. You see, what Donald Trump doesn't realize is that we are the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereigns. He is the one who is trying to become our servant. But he's not once ever been a servant in his entire life. He has always had servants. He has always been the one who is served. Therefore, he does not know what is necessary to truly represent the people. That is why we must take a stance against him. We take this stance because we love this country. It is ours. It is ours and ours alone. It does not belong to Trump, and it is not up for sale for him to claim that he is the greatly owner of it. No, it is ours, and it has always been that way. That's why 6-2 or fight. That is why we are constitutional compositionists. We will never abandon these principles. Now, with that said, it is time for us to begin our descent. I'm going to send the flight attendant back with one last round of alcohol. Folks, I guarantee you that she won't try and silence you, but she will pour you a glass of alcohol, which probably will make you more boisterous than usual. Either way, and as always, I'm your captain, Randy Wright, and I want to take this opportunity to thank you for choosing to fly the Wright Flyer. As always, I'm also joined by my first officer, Jeremy Grapenton. Folks, we invite you to leave any questions, comments, or concerns you might have either here at our YouTube page or our Google Plus page or our Facebook page. And on top of that, we invite you to follow us at Twitter with the Twitter handle at Radio Aviation EX. One more time, folks, that's at Radio Aviation EX, and there you will find our departure board that lists my personal Twitter account, the personal Twitter account of my first officer, Jeremy Grapenton, our Blogspot page, which has audio blogs and other valuable information that will prevent you from ever being silenced. And, Jeremy, tell them a little bit about the Cafe Press account.
Well, folks, on the Cafe Press account, as mentioned on pretty much every other episode since its beginning, lots of goodies, lots of little trinkets, many things, bigly things, that will let you show your friends that you will not remain silent. Even though it, in certain circumstances it is your right to do so. However, it is also your right to not remain silent and voice your opinions. And you can do that without even saying a word. Just simply pick up one of our t-shirts, a hoodie, one of our hats, dog tags, or even make a nice statement at a barbecue that you may have at your home while you pour a nice big glass of alcohol for your friends in one of our first-class passenger drinking glasses. Yeah, and the oversized thimbles, yes, the shot glasses. And folks, I'm willing to bet, maybe even after, enough of those shot glasses, somebody may just try and use one of those as a thimble. We don't encourage that, we don't condone it, but although we would like to see photos and video if it happens.
As always, folks, thank you for flying the Wright Flyer. We will see you next time. Do take care.